Kathleen McClung, who is so gifted, recently had a poem published in an anthology, which is lovely, of California poets, all women who are 60 years of age or older, 175 of them, one for every year of the state of California. And the collection is called, and I love this title, Women in a Golden State. Part of it is about aging, and it's beautiful. And I asked if she would read the poem that she wrote in it, and then I thought again and asked if she would be willing to talk about her relationship to poetry as a writer of it. Poetry, I wondered, as a spiritual practice, and she graciously agreed, and we are blessed. Kathleen.
In the recession of 2007, like a lot of people, I was laid off from my job. I'd worked as a book editor for over 10 years and took pride in managing production and sales of textbooks for nurses and other healthcare professionals. After the meeting with my boss about the layoff, I walked down the hall back to my small, windowless office. I felt a swirl of emotions, but one that rose up loud was this. Okay, Kathleen, now's the time to get serious about your own writing. You've focused on other people's books all these years. Focus now on yours. So I decided to rent an office to go to write. Eventually, I found an affordable one on Craigslist, a sublet in a cluster of therapy offices. Best of all, this one had a window, a view onto bamboo trees, tall grass, wood fence. 18 years later, and 6 books of poetry later, on the days when I'm not teaching, I'm still walking to this office, a mile from my apartment. I'm still sitting in a big, comfy chair or lying on the therapy couch, and I'm still writing poetry. For me, it's a spiritual practice to close the door, look out the window, keep my phone off and at the bottom of my purse, write words on paper, scribble out some of those words, look out the window, then write some more words. I want to say just a bit more about my poem making as spiritual practice. I write mostly about everyday things, little moments or encounters that stay with me, stuff that surprises me or intrigues me, stuff I want to fiddle around with for a little while. Poet Lucille Clifton said once, "I don't write out of what I know, I write out of what I wonder." And I agree with her. Sometimes poem making helps me figure out, maybe even begin to heal from, complicated, painful life experiences. And here's an example. In the summer of 2018, I served as jury forewoman for a vehicular manslaughter trial. A child was killed in a crosswalk by a driver, and we jurors had to listen to testimony and then deliberate on whether the driver was guilty or not guilty of criminal neglect. This experience was emotionally challenging for me on so many levels. For one thing, we were told by the judge we could not talk about the trial with anyone, not a therapist, not a minister, nobody. And that was torture. So, within a few days of the end of the trial, when we could finally talk again, I wrote a poem. And then some more poems. Some of them about my jury experience, and some of them about jurors I imagined serving in other courtrooms. Ultimately, I wrote a small book and I titled it a juror must fold in on herself. It was necessary for me, emotionally and spiritually necessary, to write those poems. The book was published in 2020, during the darkest days of the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I kept writing poems in my office. I kept looking out the window at the bamboo trees, kept looking within for the words. I kept doing my spiritual practice. For 2 years, I was the only person in the building. All of the therapists were working from home, online, working harder than ever. During those pandemic years, I gave poetry readings online, I taught my classes online, I listened to Vanessa's sermons online. And her sermons, by the way, are poems. The pandemic, as we know, did sort of end. And to end this reflection, I'll read that poem that Vanessa invited me to share. It comes from the anthology she held up called Women in a Golden State, California Poets at 60 and Beyond. I wrote this poem when the college where I teach reopened late in the pandemic, and we could meet our students in person again. Right around the time that the doors to this church reopened, and we could gather in this beautiful sanctuary together again. This is a poem about the joy of community. It's also a poem about getting my hair colored by a cosmetology student in a community college hair salon. But mostly, it's a poem of celebration. Knowledge and Praxis, a late pandemic abecedarian. A cosmetology department flyer on a bulletin board near the faculty lounge catches my eye, punctures my inertia. Damn this dull gray. Damn COVID. Except for Tom, nobody's touched my face, my hair, for 2 years. Give me your finest chemicals. Don't hesitate. Keep foiling each strand. Even if your professor steps in, takes charge, just as you turn to my bangs. Knowledge and praxis coalesce with time. Let me sit silent under the black cape. My quiet's no critique of you, dear novice. No, I'm soaking it all in. Old teacher in a fluorescent temple. Paradise, really, after so long a quarantine. Music of blow dryers, voices rising, someone's Beyonce ringtone, clink of scissors, murmur of combs, harmonics, teaching us in this mirrored room how to unite, how to encircle, beautify each other, versus splintering into posses, aiming words, weapons, memes. By the sink, I exhale, inhale. Do I smell lavender shampoo? Yes, yes. It lingers long after I zip my wallet, drive home, almost blonde. Thank you.